about some of the research that had come out about sort of closing your eating window earlier in the day. And I think you were at the time doing like a breakfast and then closing your eating window around 2 or 3. Have you still been like playing around with that? Like, what have you sort of seen there?
So with initially and with some of the data, Jason was really trying to encourage all of our patients and followers to try to eat their, second meal or only meal, depending on what they're doing of the day, earlier. I work from home part of the time, and some days it's okay and some days it's not, but it just really wasn't jiving with our lifestyle to be able to do so. My workday usually starts around 7 a.m. So I do try to wrap up earlier. We have most of our partners are actually in the UK, so we start our workday earlier to do a lot of making sure that we're available if there's questions. So we will try to wrap up our workday between 5 and 6 and eat at 6. My husband does work for me, work with me, and he can wrap up his day at 5, so he can start getting dinner ready. So we're at least eating by 6. And then we just always try to be active in the evening for a little bit and then try to unwind. And then go to bed around 10. And I haven't found that it's really affected my numbers negatively, eating a little bit later. Before, I believe when we last chatted, I was probably aiming to finish eating by about 2. And I have so many patients that just work like bizarre shifts. And like their eating window does need to be later in the evening. And I haven't really found it to be like critically detrimental from my clinical observations. As long as they're keeping things tidy in those eating windows. There's 2 things that cause insulin resistance. So it's having high volumes of insulin, but it's also having frequent production of insulin. So where going low carb, keto, carnivore can really help is preventing the volume of insulin from going very high. But every time we eat, almost not everything, but most of the things we eat does end up in an insulin response. So most of the people actually come to our program now, they're eating great diets. Like there are certain things, like certain allergens, or the people definitely, there are a lot of red flags for oxalate sensitivity, and like there's certain things with methylation, and we'll look into those things to help them see if there's any big gaps in their diet, even though it looks really good. But it's just the fact they're waking up and they're eating and grazing until they go to bed. And we start to tidy those up. And then it just decreases the number of times a day that they do have any sort of insulin response. So you reduce that stimulus. So even when I work with people and their eating window does tend to be later than what's desirable, the fact that they're sticking to eating windows, time-restricted eating windows, and not snacking, they still are getting the same results. So yeah, in an ideal world, you would eat a little bit earlier, work through a lot of the digestion so your body has more of a chance to rest at night. But I actually haven't found it in our client population and patient population to be that detrimental. So I don't want anyone who's listening out there saying, well, I work till 7 o'clock at night, or, my spouse doesn't get home till later and gets really mad, if I don't eat with him at least once or twice a week. Like, am I going to fail at this? And absolutely not. It's still very important to eat in those eating windows, sort of regardless of when you can fit them in.
Yeah, so I tried doing it about 1.5 years ago, I think for a week, and it was hard at night. My husband and I were actually on holiday in Zanzibar the week that I tried doing it, and we would have like a really nice breakfast together because the hotel had a buffet breakfast, and then we'd have lunch together, and then at night he was like, guess I'll go get dinner. I was like, okay. And he would go like find something at a local market or near our hotel. But it was sad. It was like, I could have gone with him too, but I didn't really want to. Like, I was like, I'll just relax here and read a book or something. And it was like that evening meal for us when we're at home is so key. It's our time during the week. It's the only time we see each other is in the evening. And in the morning before he leaves, but that time for us to connect is so important. And so I like to try to eat and close my eating window by like 7 at the latest. But what I have found has improved my personal like blood glucose overall is doing a big meal for myself, whether it's on the weekend or when I'm by myself during the week, making that first meal of the day around midday to be
Yeah.
the biggest, most substantial one, and then at night having a smaller one. And that made a huge difference in my average morning blood glucose and also sleep and everything. And so it's like we can still enjoy a nice meal together, but it's just a smaller, size.
That's definitely trying to fit more in midday is something good. And then you don't like eating a really big heavy meal in the evening too. You're not going to get adequate rest. So trying to fit more in midday is always a great strategy if you can. But we sort of thought that like we were struggling too, Vanessa, because we'd have so many meetings and it just wasn't possible. And then we'd end up just not being able to cook and having to snack, and just thinking long term. We were going to try to have a family before my blood pressure bottomed out, so now we're waiting a bit. But our kids, they're going to go to school. Like dinner time is going to be standard sort of North American dinner time, and when we travel with friends, or even go on vacation ourselves, and it doesn't have to be detrimental. We actually went to the Bahamas on vacation in June. And I don't have a crash course into vacationing again, but like the restaurants were all booked for us in the evening time. Like they didn't even open till 6 o'clock. They're on vacation time there, and but we both lost weight. But we were there because we were relaxing. Cortisol was definitely low. We were in the same time zone, which was nice. It was a short flight, and we were there relaxing. I went from reading by the beach to reading by the pool to reading in a canopy, and like rotated. And even though we were often eating at 7 or 8 o'clock, because that's when we had reservations booked at various restaurants, we still lost weight, a few pounds each, which is pretty good
Yeah,
for just sort of laying on your butt reading.
yeah, but it really underlies the importance of keeping stress low and what cortisol
Yeah.
can do physiologically, increasing blood glucose, preventing your muscles from taking it up, and also increasing insulin and fat storage. And, it's amazing what an effect it can have on the body.